Hey, everybody, good to be with you. I thought I would take an opportunity to give some back behind the scenes information about my visit to Los Angeles and America's Most Wanted. I was very fortunate to be on, and my role there is like a lot of the guests that are on the show is to offer some sort of insight or information or something that will help put some bad guys in jail. So I was very fortunate to be there. But what I thought I would do is because a lot of people have asked, and I just don't care to just pass this information on just to anybody. But I thought I would put together some information for the membership because you all support what it is that I do more than anybody else. So I'm very thankful for that. And so if there are some of you who wanted some of this background and behind the scenes information, I thought I'd share it because not only is it background information about the experience that I had being a stranger in a very different part of the world, Los Angeles, California, from Winchester, Kentucky. I went through a lot of, I don't know what else to call it, but situational awareness, disaster readiness, survival mindset that I think is valuable information to share as well. So I'll try to add that in as I sprinkle in what it is that this experience has been for me. And I thank you for listening and watching. So what happened was how did we get to America Most Wanted? How did I get there? So here's how it happened. It's been a long time that I appeared on news, and it was local news, probably a good 15 years ago for the first time. And I've had sprinklings of visits to local news here in the Lexington, Kentucky market. And so, going on typically, I did everything from having interviews about survival. And when I was teaching martial arts on a daily basis, I had martial arts demonstrations and some of that nature on local news. And they're probably out there somewhere to be found. Who knows? Uh, However, in recent years, I've been interviewed specifically in the last 4 to 5 years and even more specifically in the last year. And that's how this has come about rather quickly. I've been interviewed several times on national news. Now, here's how this came about. I've had the good fortune of being a trainer or an instructor for different law enforcement organizations throughout the country. Most of that has been in the field of tactical man tracking. And so we've trained either I've trained them through my school, Nature Reliance School, or I've assisted one of my instructors, Mike Hull from Hull's Tracking Service out of Virginia. I've assisted him training a bunch of people as well. If you don't know who Mike is, look up Mike. Mike's a great guy. He's been a fantastic mentor and instructor for me, and has been one of those guys that are like, Craig, what do you want to know? What I mean, everything from professionalism to obviously tracking skill. What do you want to know? Let me help you get it. How do you make contacts? So on and on and on. He's just been great for me. But anyway, some of the crew that I've trained have been involved in some of these man tracking events that have been in national news. And I really don't know how I got connected to some of them, but the very first call I got was from a rag. Basically, if you've never heard of it, the Daily Mirror, which is a modern day version of the National Enquirer. That one's probably still out there too. A bunch of sensationalized news stories and stuff of that nature. But it's an international it's an international organization. And I thought, I'm going to do the interview. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to tell the truth. And if I get some exposure from it, great. And I'm not going to be part of sensationalizing anything. And so I took the interview, and it was an interesting thing that never made it. There was a video interview and a article interview where the writer just called me on the phone, asked me a bunch of questions. The video interview never made it because I absolutely put on blast the guy that was asking me the questions. Fortunately for him, it was not live because he asked me a bunch of questions about this guy that had was evading police, and the guy had killed somebody, had stiff armed and carjacked an elderly couple, and he was asking me questions that I felt like were questions that could help the bad guy if he was watching or if he had supporters that were watching. Things like, what do you think he should be doing to stay out there longer? I mean, that question for real. So anyway, I put him on blast. Like I put him on major blast and told him I just wasn't going to answer those questions. And so that video never made it live. I just wasn't willing to sacrifice my principles for exposure. So fortunately, the writer also asked some similar questions. I gave the writer the same answers. They did not put those in the article, but the article did go live. It wasn't too long after that, another event happened, and an organization called News Nation, which is another, I guess I could call it international because it's online and anybody can watch it, but it's primarily American based news organization, very conservative leaning. I would venture to say, I don't really know because I don't watch it that often, but by the questions and some of the other segments I saw related to when I was on with them, it tends to be like what I would consider Fox News light. Not a big organization, significantly large in that it's national, but I interviewed for them or with them, talked about another situation very similar, a man tracking event that led to a Fox News live interview. And the Fox News live interview was not Fox News cable news. There's a difference. Fox News Live is basically the internet version of Fox News. I was interviewed by them on another event that went exceptionally well. The interviewer asked great questions. We were able to throw some information out there that would be able to help people find the person, including law enforcement if they happen to be watching it, and also not be able to help the bad guy, which is a very fine line to try to traverse, quite frankly. And so Fox News Live then got me a spot on another event on CNN. And I was going to be on big CNN, like major CNN nightly news. And I was, so all of these that I've done here were done remotely, meaning I was sitting right here, or there is at least one of them where I was actually in my car because I was actually or in my truck. I was in a class. So I had to scramble and get some major headaches done to get internet access so I could record something from my vehicle while I was at class. So while I was in the green room, if you will, the green room is the waiting room where you are before you go on air. There was a green room basically in a virtual world for CNN. And I can't remember that lady's name. She's got a real popular show on CNN. I should have looked it up before I got on, but I was waiting to be on with her. She was going to ask me about this event. And while I was in the green room, they came on and said, hey, they have caught him. And at the same time, the whole ordeal that happened in Israel happened that day. And so they were going to remove the story that I was involved in and take it completely out of the news story for that particular segment and report on Israel, which was obviously much more important. And they were going to cover the fact that they had caught this guy a little bit later, which was obviously more important than my appearance on the show. So I didn't make it to CNN. So, from the perspective of helping people, that was pretty depressing because I like to help people, but at the same time, I was helping people to get this guy caught. So that was um, not a problem at all. That's what this is about. I have to set priorities. What's my priority? My priority is to help people. I want to help this guy go to jail because he's killed people, he's hurt people, and so I was all about doing that. So it didn't really bother me that I didn't make it to the show, even though it was going to be great exposure. Obviously, I missed the opportunity for exposure. So those are sitting out there, all these segments, and they're green. They're sitting there. They're on the internet. You can find all those. And a producer who's doing a segment for America's Most Wanted is looking for a guest that can talk about survival. And so she goes to several different sources. She happened, because I asked her specifically how she found me. She happened across my interview for Fox News Live, and the show America Most Wanted appears on Fox. So the connection there was kind of obvious for them. Sends me an email and asked me if I would be interested in being on. So I did. And here's the rest of that process on how I got to Los Angeles. So she interviewed me, super nice lady. When I say lady, she's a young lady. I'm guessing all the producers I worked with before I got to the show were probably mid-20s. I really don't know. Uh, super, super professional, very gracious to me, very kind to me, not being informed really of anything as it relates to being on the news. And so I interviewed with her. Everything went really well. Most of these people are super energetic, so it's hard to get a read on them. And um, so that had I'm always sitting there, okay, I don't know how well this went. So I got an email the next day. Craig, we would like to connect you with another producer, and she's going to ask you a bunch of questions. And so basically I got connected with another producer, and that process went like this. So I got on, and it was basically an interview. And what I didn't know until later is that she was interviewing several people like me, people that run schools, teach survival, particularly those that have taught survival to on a high level, like law enforcement, military, like I have. And very unfortunate for me, I basically what they did is they take those videos and they share them with the whole production staff. And the production staff then says, okay, we want this guy, we want that guy, or we want this girl, we want that girl, whatever. Fortunately for me, they liked my presentation skills. They liked how I communicated. They liked how I answered the questions because they were asking the questions that were the precursor to the questions that were going to be on the show. So a whole lot more surprising things about that when I got on the show. I'll tell you about that a bit later. So that went really well. And then I got a contact back from her saying, Craig, we really want you to be on the show. We want you to meet with another producer. And what I'm realizing is that the producers that I'm meeting are going up in um, basically rank. The first producer is basically somebody that scours the internet finding somebody. The next producer is somebody that has a little bit more power. The next producer has even more power. So when I got on with this producer, she was not as friendly. I mean, she was very nice, don't get me wrong, but you could tell, or I could tell just talking to her, she did not have as much time to chat with me, for lack of a better way of saying it. She's like, Craig, I'm going to ask you some questions. I just want you to give me some bullet points. Just don't be concerned. I might cut you off. Okay, fine. So she asked me questions. I would start answering question, and she did exactly that. On occasion, she would go, okay, that's all I need to know. And then she would move on to the next question. What I did not realize at the time is she is also just making sure that I have the presence to be able to communicate effectively on camera and answering the questions that they would expect the way that they think they could be answered, because they don't, although they want my input, they don't want a lot of surprises. So um, not that they don't take my answers, but they don't want things that might turn things. Let's say, for example, there's something about this case that I can't speak about that has some racist undertones in the background of it based upon this person that's the bad guy. And so they didn't want anything that was racist based talked about. And I'm not a racist, so that was an issue for me. But, I'm going to be on national news with them. They want to make sure I'm not going to do that. So evidently, I got the go ahead from her. And then the next thing I know, hey, we're going to contact you for um, other information. So then I didn't hear anything for a week. And then I didn't hear anything for a week and a half. So I contacted them and said, hey, um, how's it going? What's going on? And they said, well, we're going to schedule it. And they scheduled it for, I can't remember what it was now, like late February. And I said, okay, and the producer said, can you hold these 3 dates? So I did. I said, yeah, sure. Fortunately for me, which is wild, I had 3 dates in the middle of the week where it was not hard at all to reschedule what I was doing. Because I have so much stuff that goes on my schedule, it's hard to pull out 3 days. Picking a day here and there, not too bad. Picking 3 days consecutively in a week, that's a problem. Well, no problem. It happened. And that was my first sign that man, this needs to happen. I'm supposed to be there for some reason. So I get a call back the next day. We want you on. We'll contact you about getting plane tickets and all that stuff. So basically, the way this works is they They pay for all my airfare. They pay my per diem while I'm there. They put me in a hotel. They take care of everything while I'm there. And so I didn't hear from them. And then I get a call, not a call, another email sometime after that says, "Hey, we've moved up production to the first week of February. Can you make it?" And I mean, I'm like a week out by the time this has happened. And I'm like dreading opening up my calendar because I know there's no way in the week that I can make that happen. I pull it up, and I do have some writing assignments that are due, but I have time that if I adjust my calendar, I can get those writing assignments done and get those out of the way so that I can have those 3 days to go to Los Angeles. And I was like, yep, I can do it, which again was another reason in my mind. I thought, yep, let's make a go of it. So we did. We scheduled it. They immediately scheduled air flights, which was the week prior to this. Going to fly it on a Monday, going to fly back on a Wednesday. And on Tuesday, we're going to go to the studio and we're going to go about doing that. Okay. So everything's fine. Everything's scheduled. We're good. Airfare gets done, all that kind of good stuff. We talked about, they asked me, they saw this background and they asked if it was okay if I wore one of these patches on show. And I'm like, no, most of these are different law enforcement organizations that I've trained, and I can't wear, I'm not a law enforcement officer, so I can't wear their patches. Although some of these are just for fun, I'm not going to wear a, Pennsylvania Game Commission patch. I'm not going to wear a, SRT patch from Frankfurt SRT team here in Kentucky. So later that day, I thought, maybe they would like it if I showed my chest kit that I wear all the time. So I sent them a picture of the chest kit and said, hey, I have this chest kit. I wear it. It's got my name on it, or my last name on it, which, if you don't know, this is another side piece of information. The chest kit that has Cottle on it, that's my son's name tag. He's in the military. And so I asked him if I could have one of his name tags, which I now have. And I wear it as a remembrance of him and all the kind of good stuff that he's doing. So I also have, don't have one of those here, I don't think, but I have one of the NRS instructor cadre patches, the red one that I keep on my chest kit as well. So that, they actually like that. They like that, the idea of having that on stage. They wanted something to show that I was a backcountry skills guy, but they didn't, obviously they were wanting something like this. But when I told them this wouldn't work and I threw that idea at them, the producers that I was speaking to was like, yeah, bring it. So I had to pack that in addition to carry on. So I had a bag that I had to check. And I was concerned because that bag that I was checking was multicam and it looked all military-esque. And, I'm always concerned about if TSA opens that and sees that, what do they think, anyway, you just never know anymore. I mean, I'm not that type, obviously, but if you're a TSA agent and you open a bag and it's got a big multicam thing, it's got a knife and a leaf on it, nobody knows that it's actually American chestnut leaf. They don't know the background of it. They don't know what that is. It might cause trouble. Anyway, packed all that up, checked, no problem. As I'm getting in the airport, Jennifer dropped me off in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm going to fly into Los Angeles, LAX. And as I'm sitting in the airport waiting for my flight, I'm checking the news and I see, first time I've checked, this is bad, there is a state of emergency in Los Angeles due to weather. 14 inches of rain one day, high winds and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, there's no way. I mean, if the plane felt like it was unsafe, they wouldn't be taking us there. So I felt good about getting on the plane. But there's no way I'm going to tell Jennifer about this because she will freak out. She's worried about me anyway, but she will freak out. So I didn't. I bypassed telling her that. And so I didn't want her to worry, but landed went from Lexington to Chicago, then Chicago to Los Angeles. When I landed in Los Angeles, it was raining. It was nothing. I mean, to me, it was raining. It was a rain event in Kentucky. So had a Lyft driver in Los Angeles that picked me up. He was a Russian immigrant, spoke okay English. So obviously I asked him a bunch of questions about Russia and Putin and America and why he was in America and what he liked about America. It was a very interesting conversation. His comment to me was, Craig, or it didn't call me Craig. He's like, I don't feel as if California is like the rest of America. And I kind of laughed pretty heartily, actually. And I said, well, none of us here in America do either. But it was a very interesting conversation. He talked about communism, talked about capitalism, because the drive from the airport to the hotel was about an hour. So we had quite a bit of time to talk. Fortunately for me, the production crew was picking up the tab on that. So I didn't have to pay for that kind of ride. Um, but got to the got to the hotel, hung out in the hotel, ended up getting the hotel around 2 or 3. So basically hanging out. I hadn't found out until I got there what time I was supposed to be at the studio on Tuesday and how I was getting there. Nobody had told me that yet. So as soon as I hit the ground, I texted my producer and said, hey, I'm at LAX, I'm in Los Angeles. What time and how am I getting to the studio tomorrow? And she's like, we'll have a van come pick you up and we'll bring you to the studio. You don't have to be there till 11:45, which was wild to me. I'm thinking, I'm expecting to, I'm a morning guy. I want to get up, crank it out. Let's get ready to rock. So I'm thinking, man, I got all kinds of time. So I took the opportunity to walk around Burbank a little bit, look at, I'm not a, chain kind of, when I go somewhere new, I want to go to a hole in the wall place that nobody's ever heard of, kind of place to go eat. So I found a little hole in the wall, little burger place, sandwich shop. The guy fixing the food in the back was the husband. The woman waiting out front and running the cash register was the wife. There was maybe 4 people in the host spot. I got a French dip sandwich, fantastic, and and a side salad. Great. Salad was huge. Man, it was good. I love a good fresh salad. Ate the salad, walked around, looked at the different shops that were there just to get a feel for being in Los Angeles. So I didn't have to go home and say, no, I didn't go anywhere. So it was raining though. So going out and going into anywhere else was just not going to be an option for me. I didn't think it was a good option because I was unfamiliar with the area. The weather was bad. And I think that's 2 out of the 3 marks against something bad. So if something else bad happens, then bad things happen. We talk about it as the critical rule of threes in survival training. If 3 things stand out that are different than the normal, then you should pay attention and change your plans because that's when bad things happen. There was a state of emergency. I was in a very unfamiliar place. If one more had happened and I was away from the hotel, then I'm basically lost. So I just didn't take the risk. I just went back to the hotel, actually got a bunch of emails answered that I've been behind on. I typed up a couple. I wrote a blog article, the one that's on the website about skunks and bluebirds, because I had that right before I left in my mind, and generally just hung out. I don't watch TV, so I didn't turn TV on, but I did watch some videos. I watched a Sean Ryan podcast. I love Sean Ryan podcast while I was there. I usually listen to him while I'm working out or something. So it was cool to just sit there and watch something, watch his podcast for a change. And then got up, had a nice breakfast at the hotel, so I didn't have to leave. They had a really nice little cafe there. And the van picked me up, and I was in the van with 2 other people that were another segment that was part of the show. There's 2 girls that are going to be on the same show as me. They were there because their father sexually molested one of their daughters, and just, I don't know. It's just absolutely tragic. And these girls' outlook on it all was just, I don't know, fantastic. Taking again a situation that was ugly. And anyway, I'll leave that for the show. I hope you watch it because their segment is going to be fantastic on what they're doing to try to find their father and put him in prison, because there's some things happening that are just out of my mind. I just can't understand the people that are helping him. So we got there, went to the green room, which is not a green room. It's totally black. The green room is, where you hang out before you go on air. So I was hanging out with them as well as a couple of the producers, as well as a couple that was there. I didn't know who they were. Well, I found out a little bit later that they were the first ones to go on. They were getting ready, as I was getting there, they were getting ready to go on. So I had wore the clothes that I was not going to be on the show on, and carried with me what were options. The producers wanted me to bring options. So I brought those options. They picked out what they wanted me to wear. I went and changed. And then I came back. When I came back in, John Walsh was in the green room and he was talking to the two people that were just getting ready to get on. They were the first ones and he had just gotten there as well. So he was there, met him. He's like, "Oh, you're the survival guy." And yeah, I'm the survival guy. So really nice meeting him. Very kind gentleman, very professional, very direct. He loves putting bad people in jail. So very nice to meet him. And then the producers kind of huddled over in the corner with me. And here's the two pieces. What I'm getting ready to tell you changes completely when I get on air. But they have a list of questions that John has. John and his son both co-host the show now. They've got a series of questions that they have on their note cards, just like you see on the nighttime TV shows and on this show. You'll see they've got these questions. They also have those questions that are on a teleprompter that are in front of them so they can keep on track. And so they go down those list of questions and ask me those questions. And then I make sure that I have answers for them. And these are basically the same questions that I have been asked in the interviews. Again, remember, that's going to change completely when I get on air. So sitting there, I get to watch the first couple. They go on, and I get to watch them on screen as they're filming. And there's a few little mix ups with the camera, or maybe some words, the way somebody said something, and they stop it and then restart. And so you can see in real time what's actually happening, but you can also um, see how they just quickly correct it and get right back on track. So that went really well. Then they came in. I told them they did a great job. And then I'm going to be the next one that's up. So they're getting me prepared, make sure everything's okay. They check my clothes. They take me back to the studio area. And then they set me down in the chair with, the big tall chair in front of the mirror, like you see on TV shows and stuff, because I was on a TV show. Some makeup folks came in and dabbed a couple of things on my, just like we do in Scout Tracker for camouflaging. So you can dull the shine on the high spots on the nose and on the cheeks. We do that in Scout Tracker for reconnaissance. They did it also for the TV show. My hair was about like it is right now. And so they kind of fixed that up a little bit and did that kind of thing with me and kind of fixed that a little bit. Super nice ladies. Everybody was incredibly professional. And then they let me watch how everything was recording because John Walsh and his son were then recording segments that will appear in between the segments. So I got to stand off stage and watch how that went down. Then they told me that I was going to go on in about 5 minutes. And then when they changed the studio, there's an area that's a real open area and they have this table in the middle of it. Well, the table moves. So they move that table out for those segments they were doing, and then they moved it back. And then when I walked on the stage, there's a stage manager there, and he's like, "Come here." He's very professional, and you could tell this dude was the boss. I mean, there's a lot of people that are making things happen there, but this guy is literally managing the stage like a boss. He's like, "All right, Mr. Cottle, I'd like for you to stand about 2 inches to the right of center of this table. Just stand right here. And if you don't care, just stay right here for the entire segment. When you're talking to them, just look at them. There's no need for you to look at the camera. Do you need to know anything else? Is there anything else I can help you with?" Real simple, real direct. No, sir. I thought everything was fine. I did exactly as I was told. Then they're telling me, "Hey, we're getting ready to go on 5, 4, 3, and then we're on." And so John Wash starts talking. His son Callahan starts talking. They have a little rapport back and forth. They say they're going to talk to Craig Cottle, backcountry skills expert. I have no idea at what point the camera was on me. I'm assuming that when they're looking at them talking, that the cameras are just on them. And I'm assuming when they said Craig Cottle, backcountry skills expert, I don't know if the camera panned out or if another camera came on me or what. I haven't seen it yet. Y'all are going to see it the first time as I do. So he goes into the first question exactly like we had talked about in the green room. He was going to ask me briefly about my background. And when he briefly asked me about my background, he started asking me another question and he kind of got things a little bit off. And so they stopped him and said, all right, we're going to reshoot that. We're going to do that over. So we started over. I had already answered questions. I'd already talked a little bit about survival and a little bit about tracking. So when we went back and he asked the question again, shook my hand again. Oh, that's another thing. When he shook my hand in the green room, he shook my hand. He's like, well, I can tell you're from Kentucky. Your hand is calloused as hell, which I thought was awesome because my hand is calloused as hell. So anyway, um, he, um, he shook my hand on stage and he asked me the questions. I got to talk a little bit about myself, to basically tell them what my background was. And then he went into the second question, which is pretty close to the way I thought it was going to go down. And there was a total of about 10 questions, and none of the rest of the questions, none of them were anything that I'd heard before. So, so what you see is just a conversation between me and John Walsh and Callahan. Now, I think Callahan did ask one of the questions very directly, that they wanted to make sure that we got on air. But the rest of the conversation is just me and him talking. And fortunately for me, I preferred that because, and you can ask Jennifer that, when I'm doing stuff on camera and I have to remember details, I am terrible. If I like, I've done a lot of reviews of gear. I hate doing gear reviews. They're important. I've got to get that information out there, and I'm glad I can do it, but I hate them. I hate doing gear reviews because I can't remember all those details. So I was really concerned about that getting on with him because I thought, no, there's no way I'm going to be able to remember all this. So fortunately, he just ran with it. I just ran with it. We had a fantastic conversation. We got exactly discussed what needed to be discussed. We got the information disseminated that needed to be disseminated. And I got to talk to law enforcement off camera, both on federal and state level from Oklahoma. And there's a lot of information I was able to push onto them about survival, because the segment you'll see, they thought this guy broke out of prison, I think 3 times total. Once, twice. Yeah. He broke off on a garbage pickup detail once. He broke out of another prison. Then he broke out the last time they broke out. Just the guy's a problem solver. He knows how to fix problems. He knows how to critically think. He knows how to creatively think. And so he's out there possibly, but he's supposedly been living off the land for 6 years in tribal lands in Oklahoma. From my perspective, there's no way that somebody can be doing that without support. That's what we communicated to the audience, that what we communicated to John Walsh and law enforcement, as well as a few other things, in an effort to, point out, hey, because I told them in the beginning, I don't want to say things on camera that will help a bad guy. So we all have needs. You all know how I teach needs. I teach them through the law of threes. I talked about that briefly on the show, but I don't want to talk about, if you think about the law of threes from a perspective of somebody that's on the run, those people need those things too. And so if you know where those needs are being met, that's where you find the bad guy. So we talked about that ever so briefly, talked about that in more detail with law enforcement. Then the show was over for me. I was done. All right. Thanks, Greg, for being on. I think both of them shook my hand. I briefly talked off camera to Callahan about TV survival shows, what I liked, what I don't like. He has one that he watched or watches, and I told him some things about it. And then we were kind of done. I was done. And so went back to the green room. The 2 girls did their segment, and they did a fantastic job. Their segments just, gosh, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but they did a fantastic job. They kept composure as best as you can on camera. And then we had a really nice catered lunch. It was like super nice, you all. I mean, I was in high cotton. I mean, it was just like, it was great. So, um, they had brisket and baked chicken and some fish and a pasta dish. And they had about 4 or 5 different salads, about 20 different desserts, anything you would want to drink that was non-alcoholic, obviously. And everything was there. And so we grabbed our lunch, took it back to the green room, which is not what most people do. We just kind of became friends there. And so it was fortunate that we got to hang out. We got to talk about our segments, and the producers were there. So we talked about how things went. and we got some feedback on that. And then the van picked us up and took it back to the hotel. Stayed at the hotel that night, got some more work done. I actually did some podcasting that I haven't put up yet. And then the blah, blah, so the lift showed it was about 30 minutes to LAX. And I'm thinking, for some reason, I just didn't feel good about it. So I planned on 4 hours being ahead before my flight, 4 hours before I was supposed to board. And it took about two and a half, yeah, 2.5 hours of that just to get to the gate I was supposed to be in. And it should have taken about an hour. So an hour and a half extra is what it took for me to get from the hotel to the airport, from checking in at the airport to getting into the gate and all that crap that happens at a big airport. So came home, was able to finally announce some things. I didn't want to tell anybody until I actually got on camera and recorded and could tell some people. Just it's just been a wild ride, you all. I've been very fortunate to work hard at a lot of the things I do. I think God has blessed me, quite frankly, to be in a position to help people in these types of situations. I've been fortunate that the national news has called on me to be able to offer the expertise that, again, I've been blessed with, as well as I've worked hard to develop skills in certain areas that I can communicate effectively with people, and just very thankful that it's all happened. I feel very, very fortunate. Everybody was There was no divas there. There was no production staff that was uppity or anything. Everybody at Fox on the show America's Most Wanted was nothing but gracious and professional. And that surprised me as much as anything. I thought I would run into Hollywood TV world because although I was in Burbank, we're only like 4 or 5 miles from Hollywood and all the studios and all that stuff. I thought I would run into a bunch of that, but I did not run into that at all. I was incredibly pleased how well everything went. And for those of you in the membership, I hope this is giving you some insight. Happy to answer any questions you might have. So throw them down in the questions below here in the membership area, and I'll hit you up and help you with anything that I can possibly help you with. Come on, join in. Let's learn together.